Teachers, what's the weirdest thing you've had to take away from a student? Eyeballs. I worked with a blind student with autism. When he would get angry, he would pop out his glass eyeballs and throw them across the room. They were expensive, so mom asked that we put them in a plastic bag in his backpack. If he threw them, no more eyeballs for you today. Not a teacher, but was part of almost eliminating the prize box in my kid's class. Kid is in kindergarten. I'm friends with a few of the other fathers in her class. One of the things her class has is a prize box. If the kids are all on their game for the week, or a kid does something especially good, they get to choose something from the box. It's filled with the kind of stuff you would find in a blister pack in the dollar store. Stuff like a little plastic car, or a bouncy ball, or whatever. Anyway, the kids love it. The parents supply stuff for it. So one day my kid comes home with a fucking kazoo from the thing. Nothing like a 6-year-old who just figured out how a kazoo works while you are trying to work from home. So immediately I fire off an email to the list of my fellow dads asking what wussies put kazoos in the prize box, and then see that 2 other people had beat me to the question. One of the guys finally replies back "Hey," and it was on. I countered with whistles. Someone else had this annoying popping thing. Someone else got the world's worst balsa planes. So like, the second time it flew it was destined to snap in half and upset your kid. This went on for like a good 2 weeks before someone crossed the line and sent in glitter. By this point the teacher was onto us and told our wives on us. An entire menagerie of live insects. One afternoon my class decided that they should see how many bugs they could capture and keep alive in my classroom. The next day, I returned from covering lunch duty in another part of the school and noticed that one of the cupboards had paper towel taped over the front like a curtain. Before I could investigate, I noticed several Tupperware containers hiding in desks. Dozens of worms, that was the cubby, many assorted beetles, uncounted ants, 4 bees, a wasp, and, most upsetting, several flies which were crazy glued to index cards and had their wings removed. That was a long day in a long year. Instant pudding. My student was mixing it in a large Cool Whip container, using milk from lunch, right in the middle of a lesson on Macbeth. A whole salami. Kid kept walking over to his backpack and sticking his face in to take secret bites without me noticing. I noticed. This is my brother's story, and he was the kid. It was a sandwich bag full of spiders. He collected them during recess, and one of the monitors probably got freaked out. There was a boy in my 7th grade class that wasn't allowed to have coins because he'd eat them. First thing that came to mind, a drawing of a peanut. One kid said he had a peanut allergy, so a boy drew a peanut on a piece of paper and started shoving it in the other boy's face and being a general dick with it. Christmas ornaments. They were throwing them at each other and it eventually caused a fight. Next to that would be a curtain rod. He found it and kept hitting people with it. Handcuffs. From an 8-year-old girl. Not quite police grade, but more than just some adult fun cuffs. Sent that down to the counselor. A wine cooler that looked like a Capri Sun. This was a 2nd grader, and she was just getting ready to drink it. A small trinket box, about palm-sized, decorated with gems and glitter, with a live mouse inside. The mouse was named Jimmy, and had been caught in the child's house. My sister's teacher had to call my dad about a suspicious powder my sister was eating out of a bag at school. She was dipping her finger in a bag of powdered jello and eating it and letting other kids do the same. Chef's knife stuffed in the waistband of his sweatpants, no underwear, during a snowstorm. A giant head of lettuce that just suddenly appeared on his desk. Where did he get it? A girl had about 50 plastic spoons in her pocket. She tripped and tea all fell out. We all found it hilarious, but a high-up teacher was walking by and made her pick them up. She was going to anyway and put them all in the bin. He was probably very confused over the whole situation. Obligatory, not a teacher. I'm an EA, educational assistant, in a school. Plastic spoons. Hundreds of them. I still don't know why, but one grade 5 kid came to school with his backpack stuffed full. Nothing else was in his backpack, not even his lunch. He hung it on the back of the chair and pulled out a spoon and was fiddling around with it instead of doing work. So I took the spoon away. 10 minutes later he has another one. I took that 10 more minutes a third. The teacher took it away 10 minutes later another. You can see the pattern here. I finally opened his backpack when I saw him grab the 6th or 7th spoon and the bag was full. Obviously the teacher had to call home since he had no lunch. Mom comes, looks at him with just resignation and goes why as she hands him his lunch. He shrugged, grinned, and walked back to class. Mom is clearly used to it and has learned to go with the flow. Former teacher here. Wasn't part of the initial apprehension, but was part of the follow-up investigation. Weirdest thing was a bag of turtles. Yep. Kid caught a bunch of the little salmonella-filled Reddit sliders at a local pond on his way to school one day. We had a turtle black market at the school by noon, and by the end of the day the principal had a dozen in a bowl in his office. Kid got caught because a terrible smell was reported from his locker. Janitor opened it up and there was a bag of turtles. The rest of the day was spent tracking down the ones that had already been sold. Edit. I've owned a few reptiles as pets. To my knowledge small, under 4 inches, Reddit sliders have been illegal in the pet trade for quite some time due to a risk of salmonella in their skin. All turtles that were brought to school were under 4 inches. Principal released turtles to pond that evening. Middle school, kid was 7th grader. The best business venture we had at the school was when a different kid, who walked to school, would stop and buy 10 to 15 Monster Energy drinks from a convenience store in the morning and sell them at school. Kid banked. The operation was eventually shut down. Wish I knew what Hat Kid was doing now. Ziploc bags filled with water. That was a trend for a while at my school. Kids would claim they needed it in case they got thirsty, but usually would just try to pop them in each other's laps during class. Not a teacher, but a friend of a teacher. A letter to his other friend about how he once masturbated in class. They are extremely awkward now. A flavored condom. From a kindergartner. This little boy comes into music class at 1 PM or so, and he's been at school since 9 o'clock, and says to me, "Look, I have a candy." And holds up a wrapped strawberry flavored condom. Trying to cause a scene. I tell him, "Remember, we are not going to eat in music class because it's hard to sing with candy in our mouths." I pointed out the pocket on his jean jacket with a snap button closure and tell him to put it in there, making a mental note to tell teacher later. I always try to avoid losing control of a room of 20 and 5/6-year-olds. Kid puts condom in his pocket and I start music class. Later on, I see him putting something in his mouth. Put that back in your pocket for after school or something to that effect. Pretty sure food is scarce at home, to taking it away would have been a huge scene. Teacher comes at the end of the half-hour lesson and I discreetly tell her what's going on, and she says she'll handle it. Great. After school, the middle-aged male school counselor comes up to me and says, "Thanks to you, I've been walking around an elementary school all afternoon with a flavored condom in my pocket." Sorry not sorry. Edit. The wrapper had pictures of strawberries on it. Also, I don't know how many of you have ever tried to take candy from a 5-year-old, but it doesn't go well, especially if you take candy from a kid who doesn't have a lot of food at home and then put it in the garbage in front of him. It would have been a massive scene and the other 20 kids would have gone wild. I chose to keep the problem as controlled as possible. An uncooked chicken breast. Actually, 2 uncooked, boneless chicken breasts. The student had 1 in each pocket. In middle school we had a special currency that they'd hand out to students for helping out or being kind that would then be able to be used to buy books or other small trinkets. Somehow during the year I obtained a bunch of dental plaque pills. They turn the plaque on your teeth a certain color to help you brush your teeth, I guess. In this case it was a dark purple, and I didn't brush my teeth very well at the time, so taking one would make my entire mouth a deep purple color. I thought I'd freak out my school friends with one, and they all thought it was really cool and wanted to know how I did it. So I bring some more the next day and give a couple out to friends, who then show other kids and tell them that I can make their mouths purple too. So next day I brought all my plaque pills to school and start charging $1 in school currency for 1 pill. Sometimes if a kid didn't have money I'd make them give me whatever cool stuff they had that I needed. Keychains, pencil sharpeners, whatever they were willing to trade. And of course all these other middle schoolers didn't do a good job of brushing their teeth either. So every kid I sold a pill to ended up with a dark purple color coating their entire mouth. Well, a bunch of kids' mouths turning purple was quickly noticed by multiple staff members, who all guessed, and apparently I went to school with a bunch of little knocks, because very quickly I found myself in the principal's office. They took all my pills, my school money and most of the other items that they were able to prove didn't belong to me, even though I traded it fair and square. Principal was livid. All I remember of the end result was waiting in the office getting yelled at by the principal's zoning office. I imagined all the ways I was going to get my ass beat when my dad eventually came to pick me up, and this angry principal told him all about my little operation. But miraculously some lady came out of a room saying, "Hey principal, your meeting is starting right now, we can't wait any longer." And the principal looking frustrated, but telling me that they would be right back, and that I was still in a lot of trouble. And as soon as they walked into another room, my dad walked in and asked if I was ready to go, which was answered with a very hasty yup. The rest of the year felt like some weird Twilight Zone. None of the other kids mentioned it again. Dad never mentioned it. Staff never mentioned it. Never talked to the principal again, and made sure to avoid them like the plague. I never got in trouble, and I will never understand how. Now I just sell coke like a responsible adult. A kid brought blue Gatorade in a Windex bottle to lunch on April Fool's Day, and we had to take it so younger kids wouldn't think it was real. Thank you so much for the awards and upvotes. I never expected this. Not a teacher, but in 3rd grade the teacher had to confiscate all the origami cranes in the room because one kid decided to make and sell them at $0.25 apiece. He got caught when he started selling on the playground. I thought it was fucked up we had to give up all the paper cranes in our desks, but we didn't get our quarters back. I named mine Swan and was very sad to see her go. Panties. They had fallen out of a girl's gym bag in the previous class. When I came in the room, after standing duty in the hall, 3 boys were flinging them back and forth across the room. Never a dull moment. During my student teaching, I had to utter a sentence I never imagined, which was, "Guys, what did I say about looking up satanic rituals during class?" They were a great group, though. It was a group of 4 8th graders who said they had created an occult detective agency and were doing research just in case. My only complaint was that they were doing it in science class instead of actually doing their work. A can of Cheese Whiz. It was from a student visiting from another country, and she was enamored of the incredible canned cheese products she had discovered. So much so, she kept either opening her backpack to stare lovingly at it, or taking it out during class to get some sweet cheesy goodness. It was pretty cute actually, and I made sure she got her cheese product returned to her at the end of class. Man, did she love Cheese Whiz. A plastic statue of the Virgin Mary with the face melted off. It was so bizarre, I kept it in my desk for many years. A homemade shiv. His dad has just gotten out of jail and given it to him, so he brought it to school. I teach kindergarten, BTW. This kid had a backpack full of baby rabbits. He found them in the field on the way to school. They were so tiny and vulnerable. We both cried. Be sure to like and subscribe for more reading Reddit videos. Thanks, bye.